Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. And thank you so much for waking up with us here on Wednesday, November the 8th, 2017. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Drew's on the other side of the glass. He's a little busy at the moment, so we'll hear from him in a second. But first of all, thanks to you for waking up with us here at 6 a.m. on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and of course, streaming over our mobile devices, the WTSM app, the TuneIn Radio app, ESPNTallahassee.com. They all work great. Podcast is on iTunes, Podcast Republic, YouTube, wherever, whenever. Thank you so much. Thanks for rating and subscribing if you've done so and left us a good review. And of course, top of all that, radio at warchant.com, at Wake Up Warchant, email address, Twitter handle, get in touch with the show. We've gotten some good questions this week. I'm excited for doing a Renegade Express here in the very near future. Okay, so we got that, and of course we have our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central Township, So Dough Baking Company, which is of course in Midtown. The rest of those are in College Town. Speaking of College Town, if you want to make your way on over to Township, tonight is Winstein Wednesday. That's a full liter of beer for a half liter's price. Select beer of the week, and of course the other places still have the best happy hour in town from 4 to 7. Make sure you're checking those out. Drew, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm all right. Let me just start off the bat by this. I'm going to rip. We have Tom Lang coming up and joining us a little bit later in the show. I was able to catch up with him last night at Ology at the end of the Man Cave show, which, by the way, thanks to those guys for going out there and just giving us a great time. They were really gracious hosts. Tom and I got a chance to kind of reminisce a little bit and maybe look ahead to what exactly has to happen. But, of course, our friends in the afternoon, Jeff and Tom, do something they like to call the daily confidence level. And I have to ask what your daily confidence level is, because I think it's a very, very, I don't want to say elementary question, but it's a very basic question to ask when you're such an overwhelming underdog in a rivalry game like this. If you had to put a percentage chance, Drew, the percentage that you think chance Florida State has of beating Clemson, you would say
10 to 15, maybe. At best, on a great day, if I woke up and I was feeling froggy, I'd say 20, but I wouldn't go any higher than 20.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to even think that in this rivalry, Florida State is a 17-point underdog. 17. And, it's strange to look back at that because 2 years ago, they were a 12-point dog. And I think we all think that 2 years ago's squad was far superior to the squad that's here. And I don't know if this Clemson squad is far superior to that team that they had just a couple years ago, but it is kind of hard to believe that you're a double-digit dog for the first time since then, and you feel like you have a team that's not quite as good as that one was, especially because of the experience of one Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, there's just no I don't even feel remotely the same about this game as I did as that game 2 years ago. I went to that game 2 years ago.
I called that upset 2 years ago. I was almost right.
And really, you should have been right. It's 7-0. We're right back down there again to go up 14-0, and Sean McGuire throws that interception. You could really look back and say that's the play of the game, as well as that 4th and 1 that we were unable to get on Clemson's about 50 with like 6-7 minutes to go. The score shows that it was 23-13, but in reality, it's 16-13 with 7 minutes to go in the game, and Florida State is driving to go take the lead, or at the very worst, tie that football game up, and a game that many people didn't think we had a shot at being in.
Yeah, and that game as a whole, I think what drives you crazy about that is, you knew you had a couple players, you knew you made an impact. Tom Lang and I even kind of talked about one of the most instrumental things of that game is that you score on the first play from scrimmage. Or it might have been the second play. regardless, you score very quickly on that opening drive. Dalvin Cook hits a home run right to begin the game, and it kind of changes the complexity of it. And what bothers you the most about that football game is that, you're right. It was just a mistake here and a mistake there. It's running that toss on fourth down and not being able to pick it up. It's Sean McGuire throwing that pick in the red zone. I think what drives you crazy about that 2015 game is that that if it wasn't for you beat you. When you were playing one of the two best teams in the country, and that was a quote-unquote rebuilding team for Florida State. You beat you that day. And I think what makes Saturday even more depressing, and gosh, I hope I'm wrong, but you feel like if you play a perfect game, a turnover-free game, a game where you pick up those fourth downs, a game with all those situations, if you correct every mistake that you made in 2015 and you had a similar game plan and you went about it that way, I think what bothers you is that you feel like even if all that happens, you're probably still going to lose.
Right, because here's the thing. I love Cam Akers. Cam Akers isn't Dalvin Cook, at least not yet. I don't expect him to be either. I also think they're two different backs, but that's a completely different story. He's not Dalvin Cook. He's not going to bail you out like Dalvin was able to time and time again with that offense. And to be honest with you, while James Blackman has a much higher upside than Sean McGuire, James Blackman's not Sean McGuire at this point. I would rather have Sean McGuire than I would James Blackman at this point in time. I'm not saying that James Blackman won't go on to have a better career at Florida State than Sean, because he probably will. But, Sean was one of the best backups in the country, to be honest with you, and he really came in 2015 and kind of sparked that team a little bit that was struggling with Everett Golson. I think those are your two big glaring differences. However, they don't have Deshaun Watson, but I do think that defense that they're fielding might be a little bit better this year as well than it was in 2015. There's things here and there, but again, you're going to have some opportunity to be able to throw the ball on Clemson if you're able to give James Blackman some time. I was watching their game against NC State, and Ray McLeod was playing corner for them. They are extremely thin out there, whether it be, I'm not even sure if a guy got ejected or if it was just injuries or what, but I know Ray McLeod was literally playing cornerback for them. So I know there's going to be some opportunity there. My main concern is that I just don't think that Florida State's offense, like I said yesterday, has the firepower to be able to keep up with Clemson. I think our defense will hang in there. But to say that we're going to hold Clemson in the teens, which is really where it would need to be for Florida State to even have a chance in this game, I don't really know if that's going to happen.
I think that's all about if your defense comes to play and if you scheme aggressively, because Clemson is going to take those yards if they have to. I mean, they're a spread team. They like to run fast. They like to. But the thing is, if Florida State's going to play soft off the line, if Florida State's going to show some of those tendencies that they've shown throughout Charles Kelly's time here, they're going to be more than happy to just take those yards when they can, especially if Kelly Bryant's not 100%. They're just going to take those yards. They're going to move that football. But here's the thing. If you play more aggressively, if you get stuff like that, you're right in that the other thing that kind of makes this even more, I guess you could say, depressing, but at the same time hopeful, is that this is not a Clemson team that's just going to light up the scoreboard with you if you come to play. If the defense comes to play and if they scheme right, you can hold them in the teens. And you know what? With a turnover here and a kick return there, something's possible there. But this game, to me, entirely lies on the defense to keep you in the game. And I think the offense will have to have at least one or two great drives to win the game. I'm not saying they will. I'm just telling you, if you're looking for a formula, that's what you got to be going for.
Yeah, they're going to have a drive or two, and they're going to have a big play or two, to be honest with you. Clemson, they're not a team that's going to be lighting up the scoreboard. They have been held under 30 points 4 times this year. However, that all being said, to hold them in the teens, I think, would be a Herculean effort by the defense. I think a lot of us, based off of that Alabama game went and looked at this defense and said, wow, they're very elite. But you go on and you look farther into the season now and you realize that Alabama offense isn't exactly what we thought it might be first game of the year. They've lit it up at times. They've also had times where they go out there and they put up 24 and they're just content with that, which is what they did against us. Granted, it could have been a lot worse because of how well you thought the defense played. But again, I think more and more as you watch Alabama play, that's not as impressive as we had originally thought it was. So this defense really, if you look, probably I would say other than the last two drives of the football game, their most impressive performance in my mind is more than likely the Miami game, just based off of the level of talent. You could say the Duke game, but I mean it was Duke. I think their most impressive performance is probably the Miami game. For 55 minutes. You give up those two late drives, obviously, that lose you the football game. But I think it's going to be, they're going to need that kind of effort, but also they're not going to be able to give up those two late scoring drives. Because I'll tell you, spoiler alert right now, if Clemson scores 2 touchdowns on their last 2 drives, no matter what that situation, yeah, the game's over. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I really, I like I said, I fully expect this team to come out ready to play, fired up, fighting for a bowl, things like that. It's just how are they going to react when they get punched in the mouth? Because this team this year, when they've got down by, double digits, I think that defense, it's not really a knock on them. It's just the reality of the situation. They look up at the scoreboard, they see they're down by double digits, and they know what our offense is. And I think it takes the wind out of their sails a little bit.
It's nothing but human that when you think you have no chance of something, you quit on it. It's no big deal. I mean, that happens all the time. But this is an ultimate game of pride for them. And this is a game that, let's face it, you're getting to a point where some of these guys who are going to leave early have never beaten Clemson. So some of these 3-year guys, if they don't do it Saturday, they'll leave Florida State without ever beating the Clemson Tigers, a team that historically Florida State pretty much owns all time. It's doubled up in wins pretty much. It's around the 20-10 range, I believe, is the all-time series there. Let me look that up real quick. I should already have that looked up, but I mean, think about how long Florida State owned this series. And then, of course, the mid-2000s happened. They started trading win-loss, home team, away team, home team. Yeah, it was right on the money. 20-10 is how Florida State leads this series. Literally completely doubled up. Florida State won 11 straight games of this series from 1992 to 2002. It's darn impressive. Since then, Clemson had a 3-game win streak from 2005 to 2007. It's the last long winning streak that Clemson went on. Can you stop them on Saturday? Probably not. But if you're looking for a recipe, I think we just gave you a good one.
Yeah, there's chinks in this Clemson armor, I think is the big thing. And you've seen them play shaky at times this year. And you really don't know also what you're going to get on the offensive side of the ball from Clemson, because one week they look really, really good. The next week they look almost incompetent out there. You saw Wake Forest hold them to 24 points. You saw Syracuse beat them. It's just there's a chance, but all I would say is more than likely don't get your hopes up. But I'm pretty excited for the game on Saturday, just because really, if you're a Florida State fan, I won't say it's a win-win, because, chances aren't good about how you're going to do in the football game. But, I mean, really, you can't lose here, because you're kind of getting what you expect. But if you go out there and somehow give them a game or beat them, I mean, that would be incredible.
All right. We talked about that. Let's talk about getting you caught up. This, ladies and gentlemen, is While You Were Sleeping.
Hello. Good morning.
Wake up! Wake up!
Wake me up.
Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
Of course, you probably know by now, sad news yesterday. Of course, Roy Halladay, who was the longtime ace for the Philadelphia Phillies, died at 40 years old in a plane crash yesterday. Very unexpected, very sad news. And of course, your heart goes out to everyone in the Phillies organization, his family, all-around class guy from every single report. And, of course, won that World Series in 2008 with the Philadelphia Phillies. In the NBA, it's 124-119, the Cavs over the Brewers. Dallas on the road against Washington 113-99. New Orleans beats the Pacers in Indiana 117-112. The Toronto Raptors over the Chicago Bulls at home 119-114. The New York Knicks get a win at the Garden 118-113 over the Charlotte Hornets. The San Antonio Spurs defeat the Los Angeles Clippers in San Antonio 120-107. The Sixers, trusting the process in Salt Lake City, they get the win over the Jazz 104-97. 112-104, that's the Denver Nuggets over the Brooklyn Nets. The Memphis Grizzlies, meanwhile, get it done in Portland 98-97 over the Blazers. And finally for the NBA, 94-86, that's the Sacramento Kings over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Switching gears to the NFL, it's the Blues over the Jersey Devils in Jersey 3-1. The Sabres at home over the Capitals 3-1. The Pens defeat the Arizona Coyotes 3-1. It took overtime, but the Oilers beat the Islanders in Brooklyn 2-1. The Carolina Hurricanes defeat the Florida Panthers 3-1. Nashville Predators over the Blue Jackets in Ohio 3-1. The Montreal Canadiens get a win over the Vegas Golden Knights at home 3-2. It's the Vancouver Canucks over the Calgary Flames 5-3 in Calgary. And finally, it took overtime, but the Los Angeles Kings beat the Anaheim Ducks at the Pond 4-3. When we come back, it's a nice conversation with Tom Lang. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central Township, and the Soto Bacon Company, all here in the great capital city of Tallahassee. You can probably tell from the crowd noise that this is a past me talking to you right now, and a past Tom Lang is to my left side, of course, the producer of the Jeff Cameron Show and the wearer of many hats at 97.9. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. A happy Tuesday evening to you, good sir.
This is so much fun.
Yeah.
We were at Deep on Thursday over on the east side. We made it to Ology over here in Midtown, right off 6th and Monroe this Tuesday, and going out and going to all these places. And of course, we love our home at the 7th Hill Tap Room, but going out, seeing all these different places and seeing the craft brew scene that has just exploded in this town is so much fun.
It is, but it's also an explosion, if you will, of friendliness. Like the people everywhere we go. You know, we've been to two particular locations for the Man Cave Show this year, but I mean, you could check out a place like Ology. They're open Thursdays through Sundays, and they offer 32-ounce canned crowlers. I don't know if you knew that, Ryan, but they do. Man, talk to Nick, the head brewer. Talk to Jessica, who's behind the bar. They just are the friendliest people, and the same was true of Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan was great over at Deep.
Yeah, it's just and the community. I mean, I saw a couple of people here that were from other breweries in town. It's a very friendly kind of business. You know, sometimes businesses can be very territorial, and I know that's not the purpose of us being here and talking on Wake Up War Chant, but it's just pretty cool, man. You know, in a year where there's a lot of anger, there's a hell of a lot of anger because of this football team. It seems like the craft brew scene has it right. Everybody's just kind of we're all in this together, man.
And when you look at it, and once again, I know we won't stay too long on it, but, you know, rising tides often raise all ships in a business like craft brew and a business like microbreweries and all that. And to see all these places kind of come on the scene at once in Tallahassee and move, I mean, it is in a town that economically can be so dependent sometimes on if the guys over at Doak Campbell are good. Or,
sure.
I mean, even on the south side, if the guys over at Bragg Memorial are good on a Saturday.
Yeah.
It's good to see. People will drink beer in the summer. They'll drink it in the winter. They'll drink it in the spring. They'll drink it whenever. To have a business and something that's emerged like this and to see all these places succeed is really good for Tallahassee.
Yeah, they'll drink craft brews. They'll talk Knowles football, good, bad, or indifferent. And in a year where you have, you know, a lackluster home schedule and a bunch of noon kicks, yeah, the city, speaking as somebody who's a citizen of the city, you know, usually we speak as Knowles or we speak as media members, but speaking as somebody who is now a citizen of Tallahassee for 12 years, I mean, I'm proud of this town for what it's done, and I'm just I was tickled to do the show tonight at Ology here because the people are just so nice. I mean, really. You know when people are nice, you just say, you're not that nice. There's no way. You're cynical about it. That's them here. So it's pretty cool.
Man, I've been here. I'm starting year number 6 here. When I got here, that whole college town area, all that, it was a vacant lot.
Yeah.
It was literally a flat lot. And to see the way that this has grown and all this, and partially with the university and all the new dormitoriums that have been built over there, and just the way Midtown and even up north, our friends in Killearn, the way some of those places have grown around Bradfordville, it's incredible. And like you said, good, bad, or indifferent, people are here. They want to talk about the Noles. Ooh. They want to have a good time. And speaking of bad and indifferent, let's roll Clemson this Saturday. It's 2 touchdowns and a field goal dogs. Did you ever think you'd see the day? I know in 2015 they were, 12-point dogs up there at Clemson?
They were. That's correct. Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see the day where Florida State would be traveling on the road to, granted, an extremely tough place to play? Clemson's won, 45 of the last 49? Something ungodly like that?
Yeah.
But 17 points, 3 possessions?
Yeah. Well, usually Vegas likes to do these things and set these numbers where there's going to be some action. But I thought that they were going to do so on the low side of the equation and start this thing around 13 and a half, and then try and get the public to tease it up. And obviously bet Clemson heavy and get it up to somewhere in the 16, 17 range. But they went the other way, Ryan. They started around 18 and a half, 19 points. And the thing is, we could talk about what Josh Ball's situation is going to be this weekend. It looks like, as of recording tonight, I haven't seen anything legally charged. But even with that situation being what it is, let's say you have him play, Derek Kelly's status is uncertain, and you look at Florida State's offensive line against Clemson's D-line.
Yeah. Let's not act like this was a stone wall to begin with.
Exactly. Where are the points coming from? And I think that's where you look at the 17. Like if you think about it on its face, 17? That's irresponsibly high. Then think about it from the offensive perspective. How are we going to get to 13, 17 points? That's the number one question to me. Is it short field capitalization? Is it Jimbo scheming his butt off? Whatever it is, Florida State has to get to the upper teens, lower 20s if you're thinking that they're going to cover that number here. And the defense would have to play out of its mind to keep Florida State in the game in the second half. Unless something crazy happens, that's how what we've seen so far to this point, that's how it should play out on Saturday.
And you also think about how Florida State has won games throughout the entire second half of the Jimbo Fisher era, from probably about 2014 on. They've been an incredible second half team. Florida State hasn't scored a touchdown in the third quarter all stinking year.
12 points.
It's something just paltry, just horrifically low.
Yeah.
Florida State, whatever, and I know a lot of it has to do with youth, a lot of it has to do, but Florida State over the years, Jimbo Fisher and his staff, for all their flaws and for all the warts that we've complained about all year, have always had the reputation as being great halftime adjusters. And whether it just be that the youth is there or the offensive line isn't there or the injuries are there, whatever it is, Florida State just has not been able to come out of halftime swinging like they usually do when they usually mount that comeback. It's like those old Hulk Hogan matches where you get the mess beat out of you for 10 minutes and then eventually the punch comes in, Hulk starts shaking up. That's how Florida State survived for the last 4 years.
That's
and
correct.
Now that hasn't happened, you've seen exactly what's happened until the fourth quarter, until around inside 2-4 minutes when Florida State has to run something a little bit more up-tempo and get a freshman quarterback more comfortable.
To me, if you're blueprinting away for the mega upset here, and listen, in a world where Iowa State has won some of the games that it's won this year, and even in the same state, a world where Iowa blows out Ohio State at home.
That Iowa team beat I-State, by the way.
And exactly. It's not impossible. This isn't impossible, but certain things need to happen unless you have a 5-turnover game, and it's just something incredibly unforeseen. A couple of block kicks return for touchdowns or punt return. You know what I mean? Like something crazy like that.
Oh, yeah.
The blueprint is Florida State needs to jump on Clemson early while Clemson has taken Florida State lightly. I think all of those things need to be in play this weekend. I don't like being in this position. Florida State's not used to being in this position. In fact, on the Man Cave show tonight, we did a little segment, and that's why you brought up the 12-point deficit or the 12-point number in Vegas for Florida State in 2015. Since 2000, there's only been about 6 or 7 of these games where Florida State is a double-digit dog, home or road.
Which, considering the last decade.
Yeah, right. In a way, that's kind of surprising that there weren't more from about 06 to 09, but they were for Florida every year in that stretch. It's just, man, to me, they have a lot of talent on defense, but the offense is either injured or inexperienced, and you're going against a team that has 0 strikes left. Remember this, too. Clemson obviously lost to Syracuse on a Friday night. They lose again, then NC State's in a position to take the Atlantic back from. I don't think, and Clemson has the Citadel next week. There's not a look ahead for the Tigers. So you hope there's complacency, but, Clemson has 0 strikes left for the rest of this season, so we'll see.
You talk about the eggshells that a lot of teams are on, and, we mentioned it a week or two ago that when those first playoff rankings came out, everything was still going to play itself out.
Yeah.
Bedlam still had to happen. TCU, Oklahoma still had to happen. Oklahoma State, Iowa State still had to happen. That's going to happen this weekend. Clemson and NC State still had to play. Clemson still had to play Florida State, and albeit Florida State's not going to do anything,
sure,
Florida State can certainly play the role of spoiler with all the talent they have.
Right, it's not a wake game, yeah.
They still have South Carolina to play if you're Clemson, and that defense is no joke. You can say what you want about Will Muschamp and company, but you know that he's going to be able to scheme at least the X side of X's and O's. So, that being said, there's still so much that has to play out that you just look at college football in general right now, and outside of Alabama and Georgia, who are just on the most straight-ahead collision course between each other.
Yes.
I mean, I get Auburn's a decent team. That defense is good.
That they'll both have to face.
How many people really think that Auburn's going to beat either of those teams? There's so much football to be played with most of this top 5, top 8, top 10. I mean, look at Miami. They still got to play Notre Dame. There's so many pieces that still have to be played left in this puzzle, and we've only got 3 weeks left of November.
Yeah. One thing I'd say, too, if Auburn's going to get a win, it would be this weekend. I don't think they're beating Alabama. But to me, if I'm looking at that night that Clemson lost to Syracuse and everybody's saying, well, they're not going to get to the playoff. Dude, no. If they went out, given what they've done,
just fine.
Because remember, we've talked in the past about cachet and what the SEC had and rightfully had for a long time before Florida State unseated the conference. It had the trump card at all times. I mean, when in doubt, go with the SEC. Why? Because in big games, in non-conference games, they've proven they belong. Clemson has done the same thing. They beat Auburn earlier this year, the team that Georgia's about to play this weekend, the team that Alabama will play in the Iron Bowl. And obviously, Clemson has gone to back-to-back national championship games in the playoff era. Man, if they went out and they do what they're supposed to do, then they'll be in the playoff and there will be no questions asked. To me, the thing that Florida State needs to hope is that maybe they just take this week a little bit easier. Maybe they prepare for it closer to the way they prepared for Pitt last year than they did for Florida State. You know what I mean? You need a little bit of help here, point blank. Will they get it? It's impossible to know. Can they play over their heads? Well, it would certainly help if an Auden Tate was good to go, if a Jaquez Patrick is good to go. I know he said he hoped on Monday that he was going to be okay and that he wanted to be a full go in practice, but you need those guys to be at 100%, and you need, frankly, the offensive line to play at a level that they haven't played at since the Alabama game, and they would do so with different personnel in all likelihood.
Well, you need guys playing above their head, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just weird to be at this point, and it's weird to be at this juncture, especially considering we're approaching the 4-year anniversary of one of the craziest games I know we've ever been at.
Yes.
Strangely enough, that 2013 game really was the signal. You talked about the SEC having the benefit of the doubt for such a long time. Remember, even though the result, because let's face it, as Florida State fans, that 2013 game is always going to be near and dear. People are going to talk about that forever for a long time. And while it was impressive to watch, people were being given Ali Frazier. That's what that was being billed. Remember, they were calling it, this is the biggest game in the history of the Atlantic Coast Conference. It ended up being a wash. It ended up being completely scrapped out. But the thing is, people saw the product. They saw the talent on the field. That's really when you started to see those two teams, that conference, get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
To me, I think one thing that really greatly benefited Florida State that season was that in the opening week of the season, Georgia made its trek over to Clemson. That Georgia comes there with Todd Gurley. I think they had traded touchdowns in the first touch of the game. Like, one was from scrimmage, one was a return, something like that. It was 7-7. It was a
fun game. It was a great game.
Yeah. And Clemson, they have tradition, but the college football world didn't really know of Clemson's tradition, pregame tradition, certainly, because that's when, the bus idea was repopularized in the hearts and minds of people around the country.
Rock and yada, yada, yada.
They do it. They do that every week, but that the national college football audience got to see it, and then Clemson wins that football game.
Yeah.
I think that's what set up Florida State's stage, and what Florida State ended up doing, not 2 months later, or not 6 weeks later. I think that's when people really took notice of what we had going on here in 2013. And I can't tell you, that game may be the most satisfying game outside of the national title for obvious reasons. But even that was a comeback, so you didn't have a chance to be satisfied.
Just regular season.
Yeah, because of the lost decade, and it's 4 years ago now, which, all right, Jimbo, let's get it going now again. Come on now. But, watching all those close defeats, a road loss to NC State on a Thursday or a Saturday night, or, finding a way to lose the game to Miami in 2009, to not even let it get to a point where lost Acadians are counting the ways we can lose this game and will lose this game. That car ride back from Death Valley to we stayed in Greenville for that weekend, the Cameron Show team did. We were blaring Barry White. I mean, that was the montage on Monday. It was,
I remember that.
Yeah. Can't get enough of Your Lovin' Baby. Oh my God. That game will go down across all sports, and I'm a huge sports fan. You and I talk pro sports all the time. That game will go down as one of my favorite sporting memories across all sports, and it's probably top 2.
Well, I mean, it's jubilation, and on top of that, we somehow both stumbled onto the field for that football game.
Oh, well, do we want to air that laundry?
Listen, we've both aired it on the air before. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
All right.
In the spirit of the season.
In the spirit of the season, yeah. You're working with us at the time when you're at school, and then you were obviously at WVFS in Tallahassee, and, man, earlier that week they were giving us Raz at Clemson. I didn't understand it either. It was hostility from I don't know what place. Maybe they heard the Suck at Clemson bit on the Cameron Show. I don't know. But, we signed up for credentials, and they said we're sold out or we're full. We don't have any space for you. I was like, well, wait a minite now. You don't have any space. We're ESPN Tallahassee. We cover the team every day. Like, nobody devotes more hours in a daily broadcast cycle to Florida State than us. And this guy who was in the sports information department, I mean, he would not take yes or maybe. He would not offer that up as an answer. He was just hardline, no, we don't have any room. And I knew they had room because they had, and I'm sorry about this to this day.
Because they credentialed Campus Radio,
because they
of course, our buddy Daniel Macaluso.
Yes, I said, I know you have room for non, because they want the flagship stations. We don't have room for non-flagship radio. I'm like, yeah, you do. I know you do. You credential WVFS. You credential 897. Well, how do you know that? They're my interns. And he's like, well, we don't have room. And so I said, sir, I'm just going to ask you one more time. There's no way possible that you can get us up here for a game. I said, no. Okay. All right. Click. My next call was to Jeff. And I said, Jeff, you've got people over at Florida State. Let's make this happen. That's ridiculous. It can't happen. And Jeff often says, Tom likes to throw my name around. No. I didn't throw his name around on the call to Clemson. I called Jeff. I said, listen, you know the people at Florida State. You tell them what the hell just happened, because that's insane. And so Florida State picked up the phone, called Clemson, and they had to tail between their legs, give us the credentials to the game.
And Clemson's big solution now was to give you the 2 seats that we had.
Right.
So
I shouldn't have brought you up in the first place. I'm sorry, but I thought it would at least get him to cave and get us all into that.
No. But what's so funny about that
is gave you actually tickets to the game? Is that what they did?
Here's the offer they give us. Here's the offer. It's so funny. So they offer us 2 tickets in the nosebleed that aren't next to each other if we want to watch the game and come back for postgame. And if you've ever been to Clemson Memorial Stadium, you basically have to take a ladder to get to your seats in the upper deck. It is just flat. It is just flat vertical. And we're offered that, or these are 2 college kids who paid their own way to cover this game with their own money.
Yeah.
Or if you need to be on social media and write stuff and do all that, you can watch the game on TV in the lobby.
Right.
Those are and it's so funny because our boss at the time at Campus Radio was interning for Gene Williams.
Oh, really?
And the first thing that Gene ever said to me,
that's right, Brandon.
And the first words I ever think Gene ever said to me, I was talking with the situation situation with our boss who was interning, like I said, with Gene at the time. Gene overheard the conversation. He looked and said, if I'm you boys, I'm staying on the field till they throw me off.
Yeah.
And so
I took that advice.
Myself and Daniel ended up with Jeff.
Yeah.
You ended up on the other side, and we watched that entire game from the field.
Yeah, and I actually told the cop the whole story, the state trooper, and his name was O'Donnell. That's his last name. I remember that. I'll never forget that. I also called the Rashad Green touchdown. I've never told that story, I don't think, on the air, but I called it. And O'Donnell looked at me like, what in the bleep?
Tunnel screen, baby.
Well,
Tunnel screen.
now this is where I didn't call. I thought it would be a shot deep because they walked the safety up. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? They got one-on-one here. Ended up being, kind of a deep end, and then there he was. He was gone. But he was a South Carolina fan, and he said, I hate Clemson. You can stay down here as long as you want. Thank you very much. But the one thing I remember about that game, and I think people, you understand what we're doing here, right? Like, we're trying to keep things positive when we're 17,
absolutely.
dogs.
Absolutely.
The one thing I can remember is in the press box, I went up for the second half, got a bite, got a water, and I'm watching the game in the press box in the seat they gave me. And Jimbo calling the play action off the goal line to Nick O'Leary in the fourth quarter, up like 50. I mean, that's not literally, but pretty much.
Some double birds action.
It was double birds, and you could see it was wide open before the throw was even made. And everybody in the press box, I'm talking neutral parties, not Florida State, Clemson media, like neutral parties, Andy Staples, David Held, Dinich. They'll go, oh, no. Like, he did not just do that. And so for that reason, to bring it back home to this Saturday, I worry that 4 years later, if Dabo has a chance to repay Jimbo in kind, he's going to do just that.
There are a lot of things that people can say about Jimbo Fisher, and I know there are a lot of intense feelings about all that situation right now. But there's one thing. When Jimbo Fisher had opportunities to leave no doubt, he left no doubt.
Yeah.
And God forbid, hopefully Clemson does not leave any doubt on Saturday.
No. Hopefully they're doubting themselves at halftime, and we're in a dogfight. But that defense needs to come to play in a way it hasn't, plain and simple, it hasn't since Alabama.
And, you need a haymaker early. People forget first play from scrimmage in 2015.
Yep.
Dalvin Cook takes to the house.
Oh, I know. Well, you had 3 possessions. You had the score, but then you had 2 other possessions inside their 15-yard line. And, I forget what happened with the carry. I think it was Dalvin again to get tripped up, or there was a tunnel screen or a bubble and somebody to make a block. Might have been Kermit. But then McGuire throws the pick, again in the first quarter. We're right back down there, and you get an ill-advised pick. I mean, you could be up 13, 17, nothing in that situation. That game hurt because that was just on the heels of losing to Georgia Tech for its only ACC win that season. But the funny thing is, we're double-digit underdogs there. That game could have gone either way. When the fourth quarter starts to get stopped in the 4th and 1, I think it's Boulware comes up, flies up, makes a play, and trips Dalvin on a 4th and 1. And then last year being a couple of plays either way. Hopefully this is another one of those. I think if you could guarantee that to Florida State fans
people
right now,
thrilled.
Independent of the result, like you have a chance in the 4th, I think 100% of Knowles would take that given how we feel about our team this year.
I think absolutely. Tom, thanks as always, my friend.
You got it, Ryan.
All right, back to present day in the studio after this. Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Darn pop-ups and video ads.
Are you wasting your time again on clickbait FSU updates that are bloated down with ads?
Yeah. And after crashing my computer, the information isn't even up to date. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with the Seminoles?
For the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer right now.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
Use the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Nobody has more accurate and timely information on the Noles than WarChant.com.
WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Rolling right along. Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Brought to you by your friends at For the Table. This Jimbo Fisher A&M stuff ain't going away. And, of course, this week, a Houston writer ended up repeating that rumor on the Paul Feinbaum show. Paul. And that's somebody from the A&M perspective of things. And here's the thing. I'm not here to rumor mill. I'm not here to speculate. But here's what I will say. If someone on the other side of that is saying something like that, you'd have to think there's a little smoke and fire to this.
Well, we've been hearing a little bit about it for a while. I don't really know how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I don't really know if there's much legitimacy to it. But again, when it keeps continuously coming up, you'd have to think there's something there. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. Other than the fact that maybe if Jimbo just simply feels like his time here has run out and his message isn't good anymore and he can't get things turned around, which by the way doesn't sound like Jimbo Fisher thinking he can't do something. So I don't know. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But again, it's continuously coming up here, so there might be some legitimacy to it.
Here's what I'll say about this compared to those LSU rumors. When you take a look at those LSU rumors, well, you start out with the idea that, sure, were there ties there? Sure. Was there, I'm sure, probably a deal put back and forth? I'm sure all that stuff happened. But at the end of the day, why did those rumors get started? Why were they perpetuated? Why were they put out there?
Because Jimbo wanted a new contract.
Because he wanted a new contract and he wanted a new buyout. Does the man really want more than a $40 million buyout?
No. I mean, that's the thing. That's why it's kind of a different situation.
Exactly.
This would be something where, he's just really just ready for a change of scenery would be the only.
And it makes you wonder which side these rumors are coming from. Is this a Jimbo Fisher wants out behind the scenes and we don't know about it? Or is this just Texas A&M thinks they found their guy and they're willing to pay anything for him because, let's face it, Texas A&M can pay for just about anything.
Right. I know Texas A&M has a lot of money. But, again, if you're a head football coach, where do you want to be? Do you want to be at Texas A&M or Florida State? It's not close in my opinion. It's just it would be an odd move. But and Jimbo time and time again has claimed he's not going anywhere. There hasn't even been a hey, I won't comment on that. It's just I'm not going anywhere. You've heard some rumblings about him making some moves for potential staff changes in this offseason and who he's looking at and whatnot. I don't see it. But again, that's not me saying that it couldn't be possible because clearly it keeps coming up. I think there's something there, but I think at the end of the day for him to pull the trigger on that move, especially with, by the way, having kids in Tallahassee, a kid also in high school, would be just kind of it would surprise me quite a bit.
Maybe. But, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire on this one. I firmly believe that. Where the fire's coming from, that's a great question. Is someone going to put the fire out or bring gasoline? That's another great question. But until then, it's interesting. We're putting a boner out to this. Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Doing that thing
Had a lot of fun today. A whole lot of fun, and I'm happy we did. It's you got to keep your head up during a game like this, a game week like this, where you just don't really feel like you got much of a shot. And that's weird to say, especially at Florida State. But before we run, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Florida State Hoops won last night in their final exhibition game, of course, against Thomas University right up the road here in Thomasville. Rather big win. Why don't you try 122-52? Yeah, that's something. Didn't get a chance to see it. Obviously, it was over at the Man Cave show, but I really hope for their sake there wasn't 55 fouls in the game like there was in the first exhibition. It's an exhibition. What are we doing, Blue? Not a game. Not the playoffs. Practice. All right. They're back in action for their actual season opener on Tuesday. We'll talk about that more then. But until then, my thanks to you, Drew.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys for listening. Thanks to Tom Lang for joining us. Mike and Mike's up next here on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.